Dr. Corby is my date. Haymaker!
Strange New Worlds Episode Review. I would like the review to go now. Well, friends, here we are again talking Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We're in the third season, episode 2. This is the one otherwise entitled Wedding Bell Blues. And I don't think there was a question mark there. Just a reminder, spoilers do lie ahead, so if those aren't for you, this is your last warning. Otherwise, on with the show. Now, I have a feeling this one might be a bit shorter than my normal videos because, ironically, aside from one massive Carpellian elephant in the room, there isn't a ton to discuss with this one, at least in my opinion. Now, as predicted and as seemed probably pretty likely from all of the pre-season marketing material, we took a bit of a time jump between episodes here. Now, it was a bit shorter than the time jump I assumed we were going to see, only 3 months, but that was just enough to get all the Gorn stuff in the rearview mirror, aside from a couple of things that seemed like they might be sticking around for a while, and all the way up to the Federation Centennial, which disappointingly we got to see nothing of. Now, a few of the side moments were interesting in this episode, if not all too brief. We get introduced to a few new characters. A new nurse who apparently everybody on the ship loves, an Adosian bartender who they poach from Starbase 1. Who else? Oh, Brotagus. We get to see Brotagus, who is absolutely smitten with Uhura, and you know what? After seeing what she wore in this episode, a couple of different outfits actually, I would be too. And also, we got to see Dr. Corby. And of course, the most prominent one, the new character or the returning character, however you want to phrase it, played by Rhys Darby. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. That is right, but we'll come back to that one in just a little bit because we also seem to have a scene in this episode directly focused at the criticism that people have been giving Pike that he's too indecisive. He doesn't make up his mind. He's kind of not necessarily the most captain-y captain that we've seen before.
I have literally no idea what some of these medals are for, and I can't wear all of them.
Alright, we also get mentioned in this episode that Batel has fully absorbed the Gorn embryos, which sounds like good news, great news even, but it's clearly just setting up a false sense of security for what's about to happen, probably in the very next episode if you look at the episode description on Paramount Plus, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. And we also get some hopefully psychological trauma with Ortegas and the Gorn. Now, why am I saying hopefully she's all mentally scarred in the brain? Because the other options are even worse as far as a narrative standpoint goes. So I hope it's just psychological stuff she has to overcome. Because we get to see in that window shot, porthole shot, whatever you call it at the end, a Gorn standing behind her. I really want that to just be a representation of her scarred psyche and not something more tangibly literal. Like, I don't want it to be an actual Gorn controlling her. I don't want to go all the way back to those early days of Discovery and have this be a Gorn sleeper agent that just crammed itself inside her body and it's not really Ortegas. I really want it to be her just dealing with some issues from fighting the Gorn, getting scarred, losing blood, losing her hand, all of that stuff. So I guess we really need to get to the meat of this episode, which happens to be more spapple chicanery. Did I use that word correctly? Absolutely not. Did I want to use the word chicanery? Yes, I did, so I will allow it because this is my video. Frankly, I've moved beyond caring about the whole Spock, Chapel romance thing, so it didn't really come to me as anything that was really emotional one way or another, I should say, and I really don't have any feelings for Corby at this point because A, we just met the guy, and B, we know his ultimate fate in TOS, which normally I would say is an issue. But because I've actually grown to enjoy Sam Kirk, even though we know what happens with him later, I guess that is something that can be moved beyond if the character is portrayed in a convincing enough way and given enough screen time to truly become memorable. This did provide the backdrop for the merging of, Data's Day, a random crew member teaching an emotionally deficient not human how to dance as he prepares for a wedding, and Cupid, a Q-induced fake reality involving a love triangle where one of the members is returning from an archaeological dig into a vehicle to almost, sort of, maybe, kind of, finally prove that Trelane is a Q. Whether that be the actual Keegan Delancey Q2 from Voyager or not, Now, why do I say maybe? Well, they went out of their way to give fans all of the information possible to make this conclusion and to make these connections without actually going as far as to give us the answers. Trelane never said on screen in this episode. Q never said on screen in this episode. None of the characters actually see Trelane, that is to say Rhys Darby, in his human form. They either see him as a Vulcan or an Andorian, and it's just us, the audience, that get to see him that way, so it doesn't actually break canon in any meaningful way either. Now, some of the creatives have said things behind the scenes, and I'm not really going to go into all of those details, but if you want to hear more about this, a more thorough and thoughtful discussion, hopefully, now why not pop over to Buffer Time Mondays at 9 p.m. over on the Best of Trek YouTube channel, where you can hear all things the latest in Trek, and also you get to hear everyone yell at me for not liking this episode nearly as much as everybody seems to. Now, going back to what the creatives actually have to say behind the scenes, regardless of intent, if it isn't on screen, it doesn't really have to matter. Plenty of things were said behind the screens to kind of tide over Star Trek 2009 into the actual canon, but by the time Picard came along, it contradicted almost all of those things. And frankly, even if it is on screen, all we have to do if somebody wants to come along and write a story that contradicts all of it anyways, is to pop one more Romulan into the story playing with a star, and suddenly it's all changed anyways. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Aside from the Chapel and Spock story being fairly at least in my opinion, I was also a wee bit disappointed by, and for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to keep going ahead and calling him Trelane, by the powers and the abilities that he actually showcased in this episode. I absolutely did enjoy his performance, and I did like the way that he had to keep going back and trying to correct his mistakes and make up for something that wasn't quite right. It seemed definitely like this was growth from the Trelane version that we saw in Squire of Gothos. That version was actually unable to make just kind of small things like food that actually had any taste or flowers that had any smell that were perceptible to senses. He could make the form, but not the substance behind them. So this would seemingly be a version of that character from after the events of Squire of Gothos, but prior to or in the midst of the events depicted with Q's son in Voyager. Now, obviously, this becomes a bit more of a head scratcher if they are truly supposed to be one and the same character. It doesn't really seem like Trelane in this instance knew who Spock was, so that would be kind of inconsistent if he was after the events of Squire of Gothos, but there are some easy ways to kind of get around that. And I also think that they were vague enough to make it work. Nobody saw him in the same form. Nobody in this episode was actually present when his parents showed up in that episode. So it's possible that as soon as the credits rolled at the end of Squire of Gothos, Kirk beamed back to the ship and said, some weird alien balls of orbs came down and were his parents and took him away. Then Spock and Uhura were like, oh, that's the same thing that happened before. We should have put it together sooner. And while we're on that note, they did have John Delancey come back here and play the father entity of the Trelane-like character, seemingly again trying to confirm that this was Q. Now, I personally, if they were going to go down that road and they were going to tie it in so implicitly, why not have the mother come back and have her voiced by Susie Plaxton? No, that's probably not something they were really able to do or possibly even wanted to do. Maybe she wasn't available, but I think that could have tied it in even a little bit more and provided that little bit deeper evidence this is actually supposed to be Q2 if that's what they meant to do. I really don't have a problem with the fact that they brought this character in here. I do kind of wish that during the wedding ceremony when he was altering reality, he would have brought back other characters like Spock's parents to be there for the wedding. I also really wish he would have whisked Michael Burnham to the wedding, only so that I could see all of the YouTube reactions to Michael Burnham popping back up in a Star Trek show. So at the end of the day, whether or not the Trelane as Q thing works for you, I'm personally okay with it. It does take a bit of the mystery out of the Star Trek universe, but this isn't one of the ones that was such a big sacred kind of mystery to me. I don't mind it, and let's be frank, this is not the first time, nor will it be the last time that Strange New Worlds is blatantly takes beta canon from books and comics and integrates it in a slightly different way into their own universe's canon. So why not just roll with it? Peter David, I hope your family is getting money from this, though, because the way things ended for him, not great. All of that being said, I think that most of the implications were just much more interesting than the episode itself. I did find myself enjoying it a lot more on the second watch than I did the first time through. I was actually kind of bored the first time I watched it, but it flowed a bit better on rewatch, I guess. So small miracles, maybe. But at the end of the day, what are your thoughts? What did you think of Wedding Bell Blues? Let me know your thoughts down below, and while you're there, like, share, subscribe, join. And until next time,
Join, wait, please hit subscribe.